Here. Zagrosi. Here. And Moran.
Here.
We have form and
Good.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. First on the agenda, got old business. We've got a report from Rhonda.
Good morning.
Thank you.
I submitted just a very simple document that you should have in your packet, and that document is going to outline the questions that at the last meeting when I presented, there were still some questions. So we did our best to research, and we talked to Hanson, who is the management company, and we have a good relationship with them. So we've received these numbers and we've tried to balance the best we can. Again, it's ever changing, so it's difficult, you know, it's kind of like taking a snapshot in time as to what's going on at the time. So as of last week, these are the most updated numbers that we have that I can give you. One of the questions was that IDOT stated that they had 3,600 acres. According to what we have and what we double checked with Hanson, there are 3,028 acres of ag. 77 parcels make up those 3,028 acres that we are valuing as farmland. One of the other questions that was brought up at the last meeting was based on the 144 tax exempts, what was the EAV for those parcels that were demolished, and what was the breakdown of those? So there were 52 parcels demolished. 31 of those 52, the actual land became ag land. So 21 of those are actually completely exempt. No improvement, no land, totally exempt. Those improved parcels that were demolished had an improvement assessed value of $1,926,297, and that value is the 2002 value. 33 parcels, as I reported initially, are part of the tax recovery that we certify and that we recover. And in addition to those 33, we will be adding the 2 parcels for Bolt Field that we will be recovering. So those are the answers that I have. The other item that we're working on is we're trying to see if Hanson can help us for your information to find out of the demolished 21 exempt parcels, have those folks relocated into a new parcel or a new construction in that area. We're hoping to bring that forward to you at a later date. We don't have that yet. That's a little more, yeah, that's going to take a little more time.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I do have a question. A couple of parcels, there's ponds on there. There's like existing ponds, that kind of stuff on there. So
Okay.
that's probably one of the ones that I would find exempt then.
But Iris, if there's a pond on it, it's wasteland, right? So it's
Wasteland.
other.
So it's being assessed as other under farmland. It
Okay.
wouldn't be exempt.
Okay, so
If it's attached to an existing farm.
Okay, it's in the 31. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
No other old business to come before us. We'll move right into new business. We've got, the introduction to Crossrail Chicago. They're going to come in. They're going to give us a little presentation this morning. Crossrail Chicago is a project for the Midwest High Speed Rail Association. project is about linking and modernizing existing metro lines to improve rail connections throughout the region, including the O'Hare and proposed South Suburban Airport. It's already gained the support of labor, business, government, advocacy groups. And Rick Harnish is the executive director of Midwest High Speed Rail Association. He's here to discuss Crossrail and how transit, specifically passenger rail service to South Suburban Airport, may work. Rick co-founded the MHSRA in 1993, became its first executive director in February of 2001. The association is now the oldest and largest high-speed rail advocacy organization in the U.S. In 2009, Harnish led a national coalition of more than a dozen regional and national organizations and a campaign for a $4 billion U.S. appropriation for high-speed rail and intercity passenger rail. Congress appropriated the requested funds. Under Rick's leadership, the association also persuaded Illinois Governor Jack Quinn to launch a $1 million state-sponsored high-speed rail feasibility study in 2011. Good morning, Rick. Thank you.
Morning. Thank you very much for having me. So, to make sure we're clear, we're a 501c3 educational organization. About a third of our funding and support comes from a local Chicago area foundation, and a third comes from individual donors, and a third from various other sources, corporations, and municipalities. We are pushing for and advocating for fast, frequent, dependable trains linking the entire Midwest. A variety of types of services working together in a very robust and integrated network. That includes vastly modernizing metro service, and on the other end, building a new dedicated high-speed line of at least 120 miles, getting that under construction by 2020. All of these things, whether it's improving metro service or it's fixing Amtrak service and making Amtrak service more frequent, dependable, or building high-speed rail, depend upon a much more robust infrastructure within the city of Chicago. So what we have done is looked at a various number of projects that are proposed that are already in the GO to 2040 plan in one way or another, and found a way to link those together so each of them can be done independently, and people are talking about doing each of them independently. But if you put them together, they become much stronger and much more valuable. One of those pieces is we believe that it's perfectly reasonable to have a very frequent, less than 40-minute express train to the South Suburban Airport when it gets built. So that's kind of a quick overview. What this would do if we were able to have it happen is it would provide a way to get around the Dan Ryan Expressway and the Kennedy. It would link the two airports together in a much more dramatic way. It would provide both access to jobs for the Southland to throughout the region, but also make it much more competitive for people to locate their businesses in the Southland, because then with South Suburban Airport, they would have immediate access to both the very, very big international planes at O'Hare and the low-cost planes at South Suburban. In addition, by providing the access point for high-speed rail, we envision building a new 220-mile-an-hour high-speed line that would start at O'Hare, go to Chicago, make a stop at South Suburban, go to Champaign, go to Indianapolis, Decatur, St. Louis, Springfield. So not only are you bringing people from the city down to the airport, but now you're providing a fantastic link for people to get from those other cities into this airport. The components are just on a geographic basis from one end to the other, building some sort of connection at O'Hare Airport, much better than the metro station that is there today. We're working with the city of Chicago on how they can move that process forward. The next is to dramatically upgrade the metro service that links O'Hare to Union Station. We believe that's within the realm of very reasonable cost projects, a little bit bigger than what we're thinking about spending on metro today, but very reasonable in terms of what other cities are doing. The next piece on a geographic basis is improving Union Station, making it much bigger, in terms of its capacity, not in terms of its land, and making it possible for trains to run through the station frequently. There are already tracks that go through Union Station, but operationally it's very difficult to run revenue trains through there. The city has already designed those fixes. The most powerful link is the link between Union Station and McCormick Place. It's currently owned by CN, BNSF, and Union Pacific. We believe that the city has already found an arrangement in order to move that freight elsewhere. If that were to be built, it gives a lot more flexibility on the south side services and where they go, whether it's the trains from Joliet and the trains on the Metro Electric and the Amtrak trains. It provides a lot more flexibility on how to get into the city and through the city. The next piece down is upgrading the Metro Electric. Currently it's a 4-track railroad. It should be able to run trains much faster than it does and with more frequency, but some of the infrastructure there is out of date. It's a project that needs to be done anyway to get that up to modern standards. So combining, fixing the Metro service on the Metro Electric with creating an airport express train makes a tremendous amount of sense. But somebody needs to start studying or figuring out what that really means in terms of infrastructure investment. And then the last piece is from the extension from University Park to the airport. And unfortunately, it appears that no real study work has been done on that. And it's critical that that be done soon, and before the further planning goes onward. Because it's very likely that if you were to have this be part of the high-speed rail network that goes to Champaign, and therefore feeding people to the airport from the southern part of the state, it's likely that the tracks would need to go underneath the runway. I don't know that that's definite, but it's very likely. So that study work, that design work really has to begin now so that you truly understand how the train station is going to relate to the terminals. Otherwise, you may end up with a situation where the train station is way off at the west end or the east end, and the terminal's in the middle, and it's a really bad connection between the two. Preferably, as it's done at Schiphol, the terminal is immediately underneath, or the train station is immediately underneath the terminal. That's preferred. Somehow building it alongside, as at Charles de Gaulle or at Frankfurt also works. But then in those cases, in the Charles de Gaulle airport instance, they did have to run the tracks underneath the runways. So that's an immediate step that really needs to happen now, and is a step that you guys can help, that I think should be a priority of this committee to get to IDOT to start really looking at that. We have started putting together a fairly strong base of support. Both houses in Springfield unanimously passed a resolution suggesting that this should be part of the Go to 2040 plan. Cook County has already endorsed it, the South Suburban mayors and managers, and it was listed as a project worthy of further study in the Go to 2040 plan adopted by the policy committee. So that's a quick overview. I'd be happy to take any questions.
The high-speed rail that you're speaking of, doesn't, one line would be a new line, you said, and then the rest of this is it co-share with freight traffic?
So, no, we envision, we think we found a way to completely separate passenger from freight. For the Amtrak trains coming in from the east and the south and to St. Louis. We think that's critical both for freight service and for passenger to have the two separate within the Chicago Terminal District. So within the city, this would be the access point for true high-speed trains. So somewhere at University Park or the South Suburban Airport site is where the trains would go off on the dedicated high-speed track and start going 200 miles an hour. North of that, it would be shared with faster express trains on Metro. but completely separate from freight in our vision. We think that's
In Chicago is talking with the Class 1 railroads about the connection between McCormick Place and O'Hare.
So the Illinois Department of let me clarify, there was, under the previous mayor, there was a desire to turn what is called the St. Charles Airline, that is that critical link between McCormick Place and Union Station. It doesn't actually, you have to do a backup move. I don't know if anybody's taken the train from Homewood Amtrak to Union Station. But you go up and you go across the St. Charles Airline out to about Ashland Avenue and you're back into Union Station. The previous mayor desired to turn that into a bike path, and we believe that the city has a plan for somehow moving that freight someplace else. So that's why we believe there's a way to make that happen. IDOT has done a very initial feasibility study, which hasn't been made public yet, and we haven't seen it yet, that shows that it is possible to create a direct link into Union Station. And that would help with the southeast commuter rail line as well, and that would give you an option of whether to go to the east side of the loop or the west side of the loop for both the Rock Island services and electric and southeast.
Dan Duffy was at a meeting yesterday, I don't believe you were there, but at the Gwinnett County Center for Economic Development luncheon yesterday. 3 of the 7 Class 1 railroads were there talking about site development, and it seemed like one of the things that all 3 railroads were consistent with was that they're trying to move freight traffic away from through Chicago. There isn't the volume there. There's too many surface crossings. They can't move the volume of freight that they need to move through the United States, through that area. They need to get south of it. They talked about the Ilion Expressway, how important that is to future development and the existing intermodal facilities. So that what you say about the freight traffic going through downtown Chicago.
We believe that it is. We're not in a position to actually, of course, approach or negotiate with the railroads. That would have to be undertaken by either Metra or the city or IDOT. But from our knowledge, we believe that a deal can be done.
Anyone have any questions for Ryan?
I'm an advocate for rails. I mean, I think it's the way to go. I think it's the future. If you take the airport out of it and the Ilion out of it, how viable is everything else as far as actually getting this done? Because we're taking a couple projects that could get hung up politically or whatever happens to them. But and here's why I'm asking, because University Park has a four-year university there. So I mean, this would be fantastic. I mean, because basically what you're doing is you're reducing the commuting times in between there, so it makes that school even more viable. You know, that type of thing like that. Plus, with the University of Illinois, now you're taking a university that you would have to live there years ago. Now you could possibly commute back and forth daily to get to the university to utilize it. So I think there's a lot of pluses here. And at the same time, when you ride the rail, you see a lot of areas that were railed that was prior to that they either removed or it's you know in disrepair or whatever it might be. So I could see where a lot of it's secured. But the problem, I believe, with high-speed rail is you have to secure the areas where the traffic crosses, correct? So is this high speed at 220 miles an hour, is that going to be elevated? Or how are they going to address the roads, the crossings?
Okay. So,
and is this viable, and what's the timeline?
So we believe that each piece should be done on its own, whether or not the other pieces are done. But if you do them all of them are much stronger. And that includes some of the feeders in like the Southeast. The Metro Electric is a fantastic asset. It is very unique in the way it was designed. Because it was designed in the time period of about World War I, after there was a lot of experience with building high-capacity railroads. In a lot of ways, it's the best high-capacity railroad in the world. It's in a state of disrepair. It hasn't brought up the modern standards, but the way it's designed is fantastic. So it's pretty straight. It's got no highway crossings whatsoever until Stunkel Road, no interaction with freight trains whatsoever until Stunkel Road. So that's how you get to that point. Now, south of there are some options. If you want to go faster than 100 miles an hour, you do need to close every highway crossing. That can be done the way we did it with the interstates, where the highways go over, and sometimes the roads go over and the highways on the ground. If if we wanted to think big and think Chinese style, they actually put the entire thing up on a viaduct so the farm equipment can still get underneath. There's a bunch of options for doing that, and we believe that it's something we need to figure out how to make happen. Because if, like you said, if University of Illinois was tied to Governor State and tied to University of Chicago, and then all the campuses that are near downtown, plus the airports, that becomes an economic powerhouse that's unbelievable. So we need to figure out how to make it happen.
Okay, so, and again, what's the timeline? Where are they at with this right now? I mean, as far as the planning process, possibly doing a portion of it. I mean, is there anything that we can do to actually help expedite this?
From your perspective, the two most urgent pieces are, how is this going to connect to the airport, and what does it take to upgrade Metro Electric? And so you can be very helpful in pushing IDOT and Metro to work out those two questions.
Okay, again, and the problem that I actually live out in East Monroe County, okay, and it's like a transportation desert out there as far as with trains. I mean, we have to go to University Park to utilize it. My family utilizes it. My children utilize it. Go back and forth. And again, I'd like to see something that with the airport, that the controversy around the airport, that it doesn't affect our quality of life out there, that we can continue to move forward. So, and we're also going to prepare a legislative agenda shortly here. So I think this is something that we need to look at, and include in there, and that type of thing there. And again, I think this would be a win-win situation as far as connecting the dots, Champaign, Urbana, GSU, and Chicago. So.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity, and I would add a third. So the governor did a very preliminary study of building a new 200-mile-an-hour high-speed line to Champaign and onto Indianapolis. They priced it out at the most expensive option, and they missed a lot of potential traffic and revenues. And they did not study the possibility of improving Metro at the same time. So we believe that there is a much more viable project out there, and we very shortly are going to start pushing to do the initial formal federally approved planning work to get that project started. Right now, in terms of true high-speed rail, California has started construction. They are going to need a lot more federal money in order to move forward. Texas, there's a private company that's going to do a piece of the Texas network, but not the whole Texas network. So Texas is going to start asking for federal money for high-speed rail. The Northeast Corridor has been building a case for a long time. They have a very strong coalition for high-speed rail. We're sitting in the middle. Minnesota has already started doing formal planning work on high-speed rail. We need to catch up at least in Minnesota and start that. So again, the Metro Electric piece is critical for you all. The airport piece, and then how do we actually just get it down to at least Champaign, if not Indianapolis. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much, Rick.
Great, thank you.
Is there any other new business to come forward to committee? Public comment? No public comment? No need for executive session. A motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very much.